Medina. I study political science at Pueblo Community College, and today I'm going to be talking about congressional term limits. Over the course of the semester, I've been doing research on congressional term limits, presidential term limits, and how they relate to our democracy here in the U.S. And a couple things I want to get started with is Figure B, which talks about all the different types of governments. I selected the top three, which are democracy, monarchy, and dictatorship. In a monarchy, there is a king or a queen that is chosen by divine right, meaning that they were chosen by God to be the ruler of that country or territory. So if we take England for an example, they are a constitutional monarchy, so they have parliament and they also have a queen. The queen, right now, Queen Elizabeth, is the head of state for England right now. And if you look at a dictatorship, you can look at countries such as North Korea right now with their dictator Kim Jong-un. And in that sort of government, a single person rises to power, usually through some political takeover, and majority of the time a dictatorship is taken over through an entirely legal system. And then if we move on over to the American democracy, we see that we have representative democracy, meaning that everything that we do is not directly elected by the people of the United States, but by the people that they elect to represent them in either the U.S. Senate or the House of Representatives. One thing that the research I have done has shown is that over the course of time, there have been term limits set for the President of the United States. This term limit was set after President Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected to his fourth term, which he did not fully complete. He died shortly after being elected into his fourth term. And before that, it was just common practice for each president to serve 2 terms. Prior to FDR, no president had served more than 2 terms. Although Ulysses Grant did run for a 3rd term, he was not elected to that 3rd term. So, what does all this information mean? I think that the president plays a role in the legislative process. Also in the legislative process, you have the senators and the representatives. For something to become a law, it's introduced into either house, either representatives or the Senate, and from there it goes into committee, and then it is passed to the 2nd house, and then they vote on that. Eventually makes its way up to the president. So, for my train of thought, I believe that the president is a part of the legislative process and he has congressional term limits. So I think it should only be fair that the representatives and Senate also have term limits as well. I think that'll play a healthy part in democracy. I don't think that it is healthy in our democracy for senators to be serving since 1973. I think we need to have fresh minds cycled in, and the plan of action that I have is 12-year limits for senators and representatives, so that's 6 terms for representatives and 2 terms for senators. A quote by George Mason: "When the same man or set of men holds the sword and the purse, there is an end of liberty." So when he's talking about the purse, I think he's talking about the power to tax, which in the Constitution, Congress was given the power to tax. And the power of the sword is the power that the Constitution gives to Congress to raise and maintain an army and a navy. So I think back then they knew that term limits were very important, but they didn't impose them. So what I'm suggesting is that we make a plan, and everyone needs to write to their senators, start a petition so we can get an amendment going so that we can have term limits set on representatives and senators. And once that amendment is passed, I think it'll be healthy for our democracy to continue in that way. Are there any questions?
Can you go over the term limits again?
So the representatives would be able to serve a total of 12 years, and they hold 2-year term limits. So that would mean 6 elections that they could, or 6 terms that they can hold. And senators serve 6-year terms, and that would mean they can serve 2 term limits.
What makes them capable of doing 6 terms instead of doing 4 or 2 to
So-
keep the rotation going?
I think it would be, I think it would be a fair deal to have them do 12 years, and that is because of the term limit of the senator. So I think the senator should be able to at least serve 2 terms, and that would give them 12 years, and I don't think it'd be fair to not give a representative 12 years. But one loophole that I could see, because the people do have the right to have a certain person represent them if they do choose so. So a loophole through that could be a person could hold a spot in the House of Representatives for 12 years, and once that is up, they could also hold a spot in the Senate for 12 years. So they wouldn't be able to stay in one chamber for too long, but they still would be part of the legislative process for a maximum of 24 years.
If the amendment has to go through these congressmen, what's to make them want to set terms to their own limits?
That is
Or
a
limits to their term.
question that is all over the media. I believe Senator Ted Cruz did, or is trying to introduce a bill to set term limits. One thing that there is battling is corruption, because congressmen do make a lot of money. I think the minimum amount is $174,000 starting out, and Speaker of the House and so forth, people that hold those offices make a little more. So I think that it would be hard to get it passed, but it's something that with the power of the president and the power of the Supreme Court and the checks and balances system that we have in the US, I think that is something that we could have done and something that we could get through Congress. All right. Well, thank you for your time.